Certainly. Mr. Hurt? Here. Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. McGinnis?
Here.
Mr. Bohan?
Here.
Ms. Washington? Here. Mr. Hoitzma? Mr. Davis? Mr. Neal?
Here.
Mr. Bahu?
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. I remind our guests in the audience if you have comments to make about any of our plans. Agenda, please fill out the green form and pass it up to the front. Okay. Board, we have, in addition to our agenda, it'll be number 7 for the Main Street South Atlantic Redevelopment Area Board minutes to be. That's what I was handed. This one. I apologize. Okay.
That's the addition.
Okay. Now we have it. Add DEV 2013-047 to our agenda, and it'll be at number 7 on this evening's agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that item number 7, rezoning planned commercial development minor amendment, Boulevard Tire, DEV 2013-047 be added to the agenda.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're set to start.
Item number 1,
Point of order. We need to approve the minutes from last meeting.
oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
no.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. I apologize. I'm in a hurry.
I'd like to make an amendment to the notes.
To the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the minutes. One of the comments stated that I was not in support of a project, the Sunoco in Ruger Place. I made a comment that I was not in favor for it at the beginning, but after everything that they've gone through and did and rechanged it, that I was in support of it and actually voted for it. So I would like to have that last sentence. Hey. Right on.
Good. Okay. Last month's meeting minutes. The
Who
motion,
made the motion? Okay.
Mr. Hurd.
Thank you.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposes? None. Okay.
Okay. Now for item number 4.
Now, item number 4, please.
Rezoning planned commercial development, First Amendment, Daytona Beach Convention Hotel and Condominiums, DEV 2013-050, quasi-judicial hearing.
Staff?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
I want to start out by telling you that we had an approval of a PCD here back in March of this year, March 20th to be exact, by the City Commission. So it was back before you, I think, in February, and then moved on for this project. Mm-hmm. After that time, what happened was that we went through a request for some potential changes because of what happened in their feasibility for the automatic parking. Remember that cool robotic thing? Mm-hmm. That didn't work out in terms of what they were planning. They went to the conventional garage. That meant that the floors needed to be changed in the building. And that changed the space because now they were looking at where are you going to accommodate all of that, because now you've got these higher levels that you need to have for the traditional parking. So they decided to relocate all of the hotel parking across the street. And as you may recall, this board had talked about wanting to see maybe about 100 parking spaces across Atlantic Avenue on the west side. And the effort was being made at the time to try to accommodate that request in looking for a site, and they did find that at the northwest corner of Oak Ridge and Atlantic. And they made the acquisition of that land. Instead of accommodating 100 parking spaces, it's now 517 parking spaces. So in the end, what you're going to see here is a significant change from where we were, at least in terms of planning something now on another corner that'd be a major facility and a parking garage. And as we went through this, as a staff, we went through several variations of what is a parking garage and how can we make that look like something that is going to fit in to what our vision is for where we get to in the future. And so it took some effort on everyone's part to get there, and we think we've accomplished that. What you are being asked to do with this PCD is to go from 100 to allow now 102 condominium units up to 122. And the reason is now you've got more room over there because you moved all those parking spaces for the hotel across the street. So now you can put some more of these condominium units in there within that same area that was approved originally. What is also happening here is that as that change happens, nothing is happening over in the hotel side in terms of changes. Again, it's all happening because of what happened with the robotic parking in the beginning, and that brings us back to the focus, which is the garage. Now, the Main Street Board met last week on Wednesday, and they unanimously made some comments. They didn't vote. And the reason is because it wasn't really in their jurisdiction. We felt it was more appropriate to give comment on this because really the main focus is the parking garage, not in the redevelopment area. And so we wanted to get you those comments. That's why you have some minutes in front of you that I'm not sure you're going to have a chance to read, but I'll give you a quick summary of that in a moment. And hopefully that'll be an accurate representation for you of those comments. There were some other attachments that you did not get, and you see on the dais tonight both some renderings that should have been in your packet. These are the renderings that the Main Street Board had the opportunity to review. Secondly, we had an omission of some of the pages of you got the elevations of the parking garage, but you did not get the site plan. So some of that information has also been provided to you for your review. I think I will, unless you have questions, I can come back to land use and the zoning, and I'm sure you've read that already, and we had some pictures of the site, and I want to get right to the issues. The issues that we have is that the hotel is what I've already described, not in or the other areas besides the hotel are not in the redevelopment area. So the comments from the Main Street Board will be something you can consider, but, again, we didn't vote on it. The design and appearance, they loved it on this building, and you'll see that in a minute. But the key thing was, through this whole process, is we asked that whatever we're seeing on the east side of Atlantic, we wanted to see the design, the materials, similar on the other side. So it looked like all one development, and they I think, achieved that. The major city thoroughfare design guidelines that we put in place a couple years ago, those architectural guidelines apply not to the redevelopment area, they apply to the areas outside redevelopment. So the question was, does it apply here? And the answer is, with a parking garage, it was not anticipated as a different facility. So we through this process, asked that as many of those items as possible that we listed for review were considered. And we think we got to achieve most of those standards that we expected in any kind of building that would be in that location. And so we went from something that looked a little more like the county parking garage to what you see now. The other thing that I think was brought up at the Main Street Board was some questions about the reverse lane entrance. Very unusual situation that develops because you got a one-way Oak Ridge running into Atlantic Avenue, and you've got a valet traffic that's now going to try to cross over and go into the garage. And that is the preferred way to quickly move those vehicles with valets into the garage. Remember, this is a private garage, not a public garage. And so that's a real challenge. I know that there's still maybe some question, and you'll hear from the applicant about where they stand with Department of Transportation, which they need to get that approval for that kind of traffic geometrics. The size of the parking space was the last thing that, again, was a question in the minds of the Main Street Board. Part of that was just some confusion, I think, about how many parking spaces would be 8.5 feet in width, and those that would be the normal size of 9 feet in width. And so I'll go over that in just a second. The overall site plan, I think you have that in the original packet that you received. That shows you the three corners and how they look as rendered. The building now that you see here is a parking garage. And you can see that this is the corner of Oak Ridge and Atlantic, and this has the same arcade look that you have across the street with the building we originally approved, and you can also see the brown louvers that are on there as well to give it some color, some interest in addition, and then it's been very heavily landscaped around the perimeter. And it's my understanding that what you see is what you get. That is, the plant materials and the size are going to be what's basically in the rendering that you have. And this is the building across the street. This is the condo tower, and you can see the parking garage and the louvers that are located above the main two floors, and then you see both the hotel and the condo tower as they look. So this gives you now sort of the whole package with the parking garage. And I've outlined in the memo some of the the comments that were provided from Tom Whitenauer, who did the review of the architectural guidelines here, and Tom is in agreement with me that this is meets the basic intent of what we're trying to achieve with the architectural guidelines. The floor plan itself, this is the first floor. That shows you the area where the reverse lane is. That's kind of the lower right on the screen. That is where a lot of the detail work is for that we were concerned about with the sidewalk and crossing. So we're satisfied that they've achieved some of our addressing some of our concerns about how pedestrians move across that area. Again, we'll wait for DOT to make its comments, but certainly this is the best fit. And they have a second option if for some reason that doesn't go through, which is to do the normal thing, which is come out of the hotel entrance and turn right onto Atlantic, turn left on Seabreeze, turn left on the Grandview, and you're there. It's just you're going around part of a block and into the parking garage. And there's an entrance off of Grandview for that purpose. It's already there, so you can get in and out off of Grandview with the present design. Again, the only other concern that came up was the parking size, and this is a table just explaining the amount of parking. There was in the calculation an extra 10 spaces that were on the street. Those are not those 10 spaces don't count towards the number of total spaces. So I believe there's going to be a waiver request for the 10 spaces that they're short on because those were in the right-of-way. So they do have the 517 spaces in the garage, and they can meet those requirements. The other point was that there is valet parking. Those are the 8.5 widths. And it's not all of them in the entire garage. It's only 32. Those 32 spaces you can see on the first floor plan back here is some stacked spaces where you can have one behind the other. So they have that configuration with 10 of them. The others are the ones you see that are outside the building. They're actually on the north side of the garage on the surface, and they're angled parking, and so that makes up the remainder. So just wanted to make sure we were clear on that, because in the minutes, if you read them, you would see that there was some uncertainty about it, exactly where all of those spaces were and how many were going to be located where. So now we have all that information. Okay? My conclusion is that we recommend approval, given all the information we have in front of us today as a staff. We're satisfied with the project. Okay.
Board, any questions of staff pertaining to the structures at all?
Mr. Chair, and I know the applicant's interested in giving his presentation on some of the information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Merrill?
Thanks, Reed. Rob Merrill for the record with Cobb Cole here for the applicant. I tell you, that was pretty thorough, so I'm really not going to have to give you a lot of detail. I will simply say to you that in a nutshell, what we're doing here is we're adding the property that we acquired across the street for a parking structure, which we wish we could have done originally and not have to come through the process again, but that's essentially what we're here to do. As Reed mentioned, you remember the robotic parking concept. There were some opportunities for us to do that. Once we got a little further into it, we realized that it wasn't going to work as well as we thought. So we were fortunate to find this other piece of property. You see, I think, those of you who are on the board saw probably one of the nicest looking hotel structures on the East Coast of the United States, certainly in Daytona Beach, which I'm not going to dwell on that. You've seen it. Reed showed some pictures of it that were kind of, I think, just shown to show how it complements the parking structure. But now I'm bringing to you, I think, by far the finest looking parking structure I've seen anywhere, and I hope you'll agree when you look at the pictures. Brian Fredley, the architect's done the work on that. He's going to stand up and walk you through some of these slides. I'll start by just showing you on the first page of this handout that you got tonight is a plan view. Just to kind of put it in perspective, you can see on the bottom part, on this side of A1A, the lower part, is the existing project that you all approved back in February, I guess it was. And the parking structure's in the upper right there that we've added. And like I said, Brian's going to go through and explain some of the pictures that Reed started to show you. This thing's a phenomenal looking structure. Some questions did come up, as Reed alluded to at the redevelopment board meeting last week, about the sizes of some of the parking spots. Unfortunately, the three of us were up here trying to read the plans, and we misread something on the plans, and the board got the impression that all the parking spots were 8.5 feet wide. Not true. 90% of them are normal. The ones that are narrower are the ones that are designed solely for the valet. The owner believes the entire thing will be valet all the time, but he is going to give people an option of self-parking. They will not have the option of self-parking in those 32, I think, of the 500 and something spaces that are narrower. Those are only for the valet, and certainly the ones that are being stacked, if you will, that have more than one parking spot are valet only, because the valet has to control certainly anybody who's going to be pinned in by another car. But I don't know whether you want to get into that level of detail. We're happy to do it if you want, but for the most part, we're going to be providing a great deal more standard parking than we were before. And by virtue of acquiring this property across the street, we freed up some of the property on the east side of the street for some more condo units in that tower that had the parking in it. So I think there are 21 more condo units, which I think is a good thing. It's certainly within the realm of the permitted density, et cetera. So I think that's better. The question about the issue that Reed brought up about the opposing lane, as he called it, if you'll look at the overhead there, this plan view that I was just telling you about, and you look right above where it says A1A at the intersection there, you'll see that there's a lane that goes opposite the one way and turns into the garage. But if you'll look at the western edge of it, you'll see that there's a curb with landscaping. There'll be an obvious barrier there, so there's no question about, there's no way somebody could go the wrong way down Oak Ridge through there. And, you know, we're talking to DOT. I just got an update actually a few minutes ago that we don't have final approval from DOT, but we've got positive feedback from them about the concept. But again, as Reed said, the alternative is we have another entrance. If you look at the upper right-hand side of that page, you'll see there's an entrance off of Grandview that comes into the parking garage right there at the upper right-hand corner, at the northwest corner of the garage, and goes into the floor plan as Reed was describing to you. Again, I'm not going to get into the detail of how cars come in and out of it. If you want to, we can. We've got a slice of every floor, and we can talk about how it works. This is not going to be a parking structure like the county's garage, where there's a center lane and there's a bunch of opposing U movements where it's very confusing. This is going to be a single circular movement up the garage, so it's going to be much simpler and much easier to navigate, in case any of you have dealt with that nightmare over there. That's really all I have. I'm going to let Brian go through and describe the architecture to you. Again, I hope you agree with me that this is the Taj Mahal of parking garages, and it'll complement what we brought you back in February across the street.
Good evening, Chairman. Brian Fredley, BPF Design. We're the architects on the project. I'm here with my partner, Dallas Peacock. Wanted to go through the project a little bit with you. The parking garage itself, as Reed explained, is a mixed-use looking building to try to get a retail look on the first floor, much like the resort, and then have the parking structure above. The whole building is for parking, but we wanted it to, be a kindred spirit with the resort, and take, the corner where we've got a, an Eckerd Drugs that's been defunct for years and try to do something with it, expanding the project to not only make it, a beachfront project, but now try to do something with that whole intersection. So we're controlling really 3 sides of that intersection, which is a nice feature. With it, this mixed-use look and matching the resort, we have a lot of features that Reed mentioned. The louvers that match the resort, the stone features of the arcade, the storefront glass. It's going to be a nice-looking building. This would be a view of it from the corner from the resort, looking northwest at the arcade and then down Oak Ridge. This is a view looking north, slightly, basically north with the garage on your west side. That's a view looking west, so you're seeing the arcade and then the landscape that's screening the first floor parking, and that's what you'd be looking at from the resort side of the street looking back west. This is the view from the north side of the property, which is going to be heavily landscaped with the tropical landscape. This is the view from the east facade, looking east on Grandview, and that's the secondary entrance on the left-hand side there that Rob mentioned, that you would take to either exit the garage or to come around the block and enter the building. And then this is the view from Oak Ridge. And the idea with Oak Ridge, if it all works out, is to try to get parallel parking along both sides of Oak Ridge so that we can really make Oak Ridge more of a pedestrian street rather than a super highway like it is right now. People tend to fly over that bridge and go 70 miles an hour, all the way to A1A. We're hoping that this project can slow traffic down a little bit and make that a gateway street for the beach side. This is the view of our vision of this gateway street, looking at the resort on the east side with the parking garage on the left, which is on the north side, the parallel spaces on either side, 2 lanes, just like Seabreeze has, going down the middle, the tropical landscape, screening the first floor and second floor parking for that matter. This is what we really hope for Oak Ridge all the way back to the bridge.
Okay.
And then, of course, this is what we're working to match. The same kind of look where you've got a retail, almost mixed-use project where you've got commercial, on the first floor, which would be shops and hotel functions, and then you've got, they've got their parking above that with the rooms of the hotel above that. So we're matching the same louvers, we're matching the same glass, the same arcade, and then the view of the resort itself. And I might mention that nothing's really changed on the resort building itself. I mean, it's all been internal changes. They went from, the 500 spaces with the robotic parking that they had, just in rough figures, and they've reconfigured the parking to have, 300 so spaces over there, just in a different format, and internally changed the building. So, there's no request for anything on the resort side. It's just the parking garage. That's it.
For the record, would you please give your address?
Yeah, 207 Fairview Avenue, Daytona Beach.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just one question. The setback on the garage, is that 25 feet all around?
I believe it's 20. Yeah,
Are you looking at a particular side?
I thought there was more setback on the north side on the west side for some reason. So the north side has a big setback.
Randy, why don't you jump up? He's got the more detailed plan.
20 on A1A, 15 on Oak Ridge, 15 on Grandview.
Does that include the overhang where you can walk underneath?
The overhang encroaches into the setback.
So the overhang is over the 15 feet?
Yes, sir. Please. Thank you.
You're driving her crazy.
Yeah, I'm about to go all the way over here.
Randy Hudak, 300 Interchange Boulevard, Ormond Beach.
Thank you.
The overhang will encroach into that setback, but that's sort of provides you a covered pedestrian walkway adjacent to A1A and to Oak Ridge.
Okay. No, because I looked at the plans, and I thought the plans showed 20 or 25 feet, although I wasn't sure. And I thought one of the specifications said all setbacks shall be 25 feet. But then when I looked at the pictures, the sidewalks looked very narrow, so I thought you must be including the covered walkway as part of the setback. So in effect, those pillars are coming down right, the sidewalk's only going to be 5 feet wide outside those pillars.
I believe we're talking about here. Right, you have the existing sidewalk that's on A1A now, and then you have additional sidewalk that'll be on our...
Covered walkway.
Correct,
That we're creating.
correct.
That'll be west of the existing sidewalk.
But there's a slightly wider walkway along Oak Ridge then?
Right now, yeah, it depends on which section of Oak Ridge. Typically, it's a 5-foot sidewalk on Oak Ridge.
Okay. That was my only question.
Okay.
Thanks, Randy. I just wanted to add one thing.
Okay.
I meant to say, when Reed was talking about the 10 spaces that are in the right-of-way, we are not only going to create 10 new spaces along the right-of-way in the parking garage, there are 29, is that right, more spaces? I'm sorry, 39 more spaces. So there'll be 49 new spaces along the road that we will create by the restriping and reconfiguration of Oak Ridge, as Reed alluded to make it more like Seabreeze, less like a freeway, more like a pedestrian-friendly area. So I wanted to make sure you guys understood that. Although we can't count those towards our parking count, we're making them, and they're going to be there. So I think it's a real positive. And we're actually talking to the county and DOT about trying to streetscape and landscape that whole boulevard all the way to the river, which I mentioned to you when I was here in February. We're still working with them. There's still a good possibility. Of course, that goes way beyond our project, but we're thinking it's going to create a whole new entrance to the beach side of this location. So we're real happy about it.
Of those 39 spaces, that's between A1A and Halifax.
In the river, right, yeah. Yep.
So Oak Ridge will become a 2-lane road, actually.
In part 2 and part 3, it was originally going to be just the restriping and same number of lanes, but DOT wants a bike path added to the south side. So that's taken up more space. So we got sidewalk, bike path, new landscaping, a lot more things being added. But again, it's going to become more like Seabreeze. That's the idea, and that's the hope. So hopefully that's something everybody thinks is a good idea. I certainly do. Why it became so different from the start, who knows? But DOT really gave a lot bigger priority, it seems, to Seabreeze when they put those bridges in for some reason. But hopefully we can correct that.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Merrill?
Bob?
I have one question now. On this picture here, down here was going to be retail? Or
Still is. The reason why he showed that, Bob, is to show how he tried to sort of mimic the look of it with the garage, but we're going to...
It's not retail over here on the
It's not. It's going to be glass front to look like a retail, so they'll be yeah. You can window shop there, but you can't buy anything. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I don't have a question, just a
Statement?
comment. I'm always worried about robotic parking on the when we approved it before, I just saw it, you know, season up with salt and salt air and all that. This is a compliment to the project, I think. It's the only solution, in my opinion, and they've done a good job on the design and traffic patterns, which I think is good. They get to add more rooms, that makes sense. That's right.
And I'll just add that every visioning session about the E-zone and everything else that we've had in the last 15 years about this area of town has said we need parking structures to take advantage of this valuable oceanfront real estate, and fortunately that's what's happening here. So
Good. Board, please speak into the microphones. They're not hearing you well.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
I'd like to commend you on this project. Over the years, we've had various versions of parking garages, and I tell you, this beats anything we've seen. Yeah,
It's very neat and well put together.
yeah.
When you look at it, it really complements that entire area. So we're in need of something like that to enhance our main entrance. Some would call it No More Speedway, coming over the bridge. But the attractive look that you've added to the area, more than, it just simply makes it look wonderful. So commend you also on your efforts. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I think the project itself is just a wonderful project. My only concern is the backflow of traffic. And again, once you get the report from the DOT, then that will clear that up. But that's my concern. Other than that, especially on the one-way street.
All right. Mr. Merrill, you are the applicant. You've spoken.
I've said my piece.
Yeah, okay. Mrs. Pauletta Kunick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paulita Cunded, located at 430 North Atlantic Avenue. This amendment to the Proto Group's PCD agreement with increased units and density and parking garage ingress and egress and overall traffic flow patterns will seriously affect the overall Oak Ridge A1A intersection when it comes to traffic flow. There's no question the building is beautiful. I think Brian Fredley did a great job. My main concern is, it is my understanding that even though they looked at this site plan review over the last 4 months, the actual traffic study, which as of yesterday afternoon was not actually posted to the website. This may place the board at a disadvantage to comment without sufficient analysis and full and detailed comments about the traffic flow from the city staff. As an adjacent property owner located in the middle of this project on the southeast corner of the intersection, it places us and the public at a disadvantage as well by not reviewing that traffic study, as we should before this meeting. We cannot make a prudent review of this traffic study and offer any serious legitimate comments of how it will directly and significantly impact our property's parking and our guests' ingress and egress, as well as the traffic flow patterns in this area. There are several safety elements and concerns regarding ingress and egress to and fro this off-street parking garage. The applicant's plan for the Oak Ridge garage entrance, which I will respectfully call their Plan A, is a roadway design plan for a private developer for private use. The car leaves the hotel and heads west and stops at the Oak Ridge traffic light to cross over A1A into a private use lane solely for private entrance to a private garage. Our concerns are this will add to oversaturation of that intersection. Without seeing the traffic study, it appears that it could lead to an awkward traffic arrangement in that area and double the trip generations per car per hour. For example, many of you may be aware of this already, but one trip generation is when one guest arrives at a hotel. The second trip generation is when they leave that hotel. This is typical. It's considered a generation of 2 trips. This plan doubles the trip generation. One guest arrives, then the valet takes the car and parks off-site. That's 2 trips. Then the valet returns, and brings the car back to the guest who then leaves, that's an additional 2 trips. So this is a total of 4 trips, and it actually doubles the average trip per hour. That is a concern. If DOT does not allow for their Plan A and the Grandview entrance goes into effect, which I respectfully call Plan B, the cars will go around the block as stated, but Grandview is a 2-lane road. And again, I'm talking about traffic flow, not per se the building. Will cars entering the Grandview entrance present a queue backup all the way back to Seabreeze, especially during peak weeks and peak events? And exactly what is the traffic flow pattern leaving that garage? I noticed that the pattern of traffic flow really wasn't discussed tonight. Will there be a traffic light at Grandview to turn onto Oak Ridge? Carefully reviewing and analyzing this traffic study by the public and this board is prudent and imperative, especially when the public has not been able to review the traffic study in advance. I understand that there's been discussions with DOT, but has the applicant actually submitted a package to DOT yet? Additional concerns are, we understand that there is confusion in that area when people enter that intersection. And crossing from east to west and making a right or a left-hand turn into the garage area without proper signage is a concern. What will the signs state, and how will they be placed around that intersection, alerting the public? Can we go this way but not that way? That is a concern. Can you only turn left here but not go straight? Again, I've not seen the traffic study, which I hope includes the parking garage ingress and egress and distances from both of the intersections. Another concern, it appears that cars leaving the hotel and heading east to the Oak Ridge entrance will back up onto A1A while waiting in queue, and that may cause a gridlock and additional safety issues for cars on Oak Ridge. So I just ask that you all carefully look at some of these situations. There's several different scenarios with traffic flow. Another huge concern is I understand that they're going to add 39 spaces, which is terrific, on that roadway. But our concern is what is going to happen to the 150 to 200 employees that are going to park? Are they going to be allowed to park on the parking garage, or are they going to be parking on the roadway and all the surrounding property owners' spaces that they have? This has not been discussed. The traffic flow is not being discussed tonight. And I'm sure that that employee number will increase during the peak weeks. How do the condo owners access their parking now that the robotic parking has been eliminated? That may have been discussed with staff. Again, it wasn't something for public review. Do they enter on the north side of the building and then stop on A1A and then they're backed up on a queue? Is their garbage pickup in modified? Which concerns our garbage pickup. I mean, we're still there on that corner, so we're very concerned about that. This intersection is going to be quite congested, and a pedestrian crossover is needed. The applicant stated at the Main Street Redevelopment Board that the city waived the pedestrian crossover. How can that be possible if the parking garage was not even purchased at the time of the PCD agreement? Could someone on this board enlighten us and the public on how and when that change occurred? The additional condo units being requested is adding density to an already over-ambitious hotel design. Adding parking is not the same thing as adding density. How much additional parking spaces does this add from the original design? They are replacing 5 to 8 floors of robotic parking on the hotel site and substituting it with additional condo units. Again, adding more density. What provisions have been made for the ER vehicles and concession stands that are heading down to the beach during peak hours and events? Have they had communication and discussion with the county regarding relocating the bathrooms at the end of the approach? This PCD amendment request has very serious and far-reaching traffic flow patterns and safety elements that will significantly impact the beachside area for decades to come. Take your time, analyze it, reanalyze it, and consider all property owners and the public traveling in this area, and not just the applicant's hotel guests. We respectfully request you table this until the public and this board has had a thorough review. Otherwise, it may be viewed as premature and almost irresponsible not to allow the public to view this. I really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Would you like to respond to any of those?
Are there more public comments?
There are more. Okay.
But yes, I would.
Mike, who did? I'm trying to say. Andy?
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? My sister, who just spoke, did a pretty good job. I just want to go through my notes, make sure she didn't miss anything. Just for the record, we control one of the corners. The applicant only has 2 corners. We have the 3rd corner, and the Kangaroo store is directly across the street. So just want to set the record straight on who has what corner. One thing lost in this discussion, the intersection as it is now, we have the abandoned Thunderbird project on the northeast corner of this intersection. People, tourists and residents utilize that beach approach for parking right now on the north side of Oak Ridge, east of A1A. Without any hotel, the Thunderbird, the old Esquire, the old Sailmaker, the old Shamrock, they're not even there. During peak times, it is extremely congested with not a 500-plus room hotel sitting there at the end of Oak Ridge with 120-some condos proposed. I do agree with my sister. I think this thing has to be reviewed from a parking aspect, the traffic flow. We still don't have enough information. The project looks nice. We're not against the project. We just happen to be right in the middle of it. It affects our parking. We're going to have 500-plus vehicles going across the street. Soon you come and turn right onto A1A to go onto eastbound Oak Ridge toward the ocean. You only have room for about 5 cars before you hit their valet entrance. Our parking lot is 16 feet from their valet entrance. There's 3 cars that can only occupy west of our parking lot till you hit A1A. We're talking all day long, 500-plus cars, plus guests of guests, plus guests of the restaurants of the hotel, plus any special events that take place in their 15,000-square-foot proposed ballroom. These things need to be considered also. I hope you're considering them. I still see a major problem here. I think my sister's already addressed the pattern from Oak Ridge taking a right if Plan B goes into effect, down to Seabreeze, taking a left on Grandview, entering the garage. The valet portion, if there was absolutely no other traffic in the area and they had the whole Oak Ridge to themselves, the applicant, you can pretty much park about or have cars bumper to bumper on Oak Ridge from Grandview to A1A. You may have about 10 cars there. Those 10 cars have to wait for this green light to cross straight over eastbound on Oak Ridge. I don't know if all 10 cars can get across. We got 507 parking, or 17 in that garage. When these valet guys come over to run into the garage and go back over and deliver those vehicles, I just see a backup, and that's with no other cars, residents, tourists, or anything, just themselves. I see it as a nightmare waiting to happen. I hope they will consider a pedestrian overpass, because I also foresee many accidents with pedestrians. There are already accidents with pedestrians now, but it's going to be a nightmare. At least at the county garage, we got the walkover over there, which serves its purpose. I think that has reduced quite a bit of accidents on just down the street from us. Let me see if I missed anything else, and I'm just about done. I just want to reiterate what my sister said about they may have 150 plus employees. Where are they going to park here? And I really don't know how many spaces are going to be left on the on-site parking now that they've eliminated the robotic parking. Hopefully, they will speak to that. I have a question mark about that. And that's really about it. I wish them luck on this project. I just think it's going to affect the area greatly, including us. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
Oh. Yeah, you need to fill out a card, please. Go ahead. Come on up. Yes.
My name's David Turetsky, 608 John Anderson Drive, Ormond Beach. I, too, am an adjacent property owner. I own the vacant property that would be directly north of the parking garage and those vacant lots that extend to the drugstore on Grandview, all of those lots. And I also own the storefront that's directly on A1A, right where that turn-in would be, which would be catty corner from this project. And as opposed to your last two speakers, I don't want this board to be dissuaded or think that this project in any way is detrimental to the community. I've been here for a long time. I've been a physician in this town for 20 years, and I've seen good things and bad things happen. And right now we're at the cusp of something great happening. And I don't want this board to think that a small minority of people who have a vested interest in opposing this project are what lead the way in deciding how this goes for the entire community. Because when I hear you talk about the public, that's John Q. Public, I think you're going to see 99.99% of the people say, we want this.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for just a couple of minutes for rebuttal, Mr. Chairman. Rob Merrill, again, for the record, 150 Magnolia. Most of you, some of you weren't up here, but most of you were here last February, and so you've seen this whole discussion take place, especially as it relates to the things on the east side of A1A. For instance, I appreciate Mike and Paulita's comments. We spent a great deal of time at our your original approval of this project talking about and showing where their Sea Dunes Motel fit into this project from every angle, and talked about all the things we tried to do to make this project compatible with their use going forward. And I think we went to great lengths. I think this board appreciated that. I think that's the reason why you got behind the project and recommended approving it. Things that Paulita brought up about the bathrooms, and Mike about the valet coming in and out on the approach. All those things were discussed, and we're sticking with our plan on the Oak Ridge approach. Everything's the same. Nothing's changed. As far as the garage goes and the idea of a traffic analysis more in depth than what you have, we did a traffic study originally with the project, and you remember you saw that, which essentially, and you guys see these things with most of your applications, it says what happens on the roadway network when the cars come in and out of this new place. Well, having half the cars park right across the street doesn't change that very much. So the cars are still doing the same things. The traffic study looks for miles and miles at intersections, road segments, making sure the level of service is adequate. It's all the same. Now, in large part because of Mike and Paulita coming to these previous meetings and talking about the more immediate circulation of traffic, we did a much more in-depth, very narrowly focused geographically study about that. And Dan D'Antonio from Lasseter Transportation is here tonight. He can answer any questions you guys have. I don't know. I asked him not to go down every question that was raised by Paulita unless you guys want him to get into that, because there's a lot of detail there that I'm not sure a lot of it is directly relevant to your decision tonight, but I'll let you decide and ask Dan the questions. But essentially, we have all the data. Your staff has all that data. That's the kind of thing that is not required of us normally. So it's certainly not something that I want to get into the weeds, if you will, with you guys on, any more so than how the beams tie together in the floor structure on the garage. If you want to talk about it, we got the guys here to do it. But that's a lot of detail. Now, I think it's important for you guys to see the context of what appeared to be kind of a debate here. These folks still want to continue to operate their little motel in the middle of this giant project. That's fine. I think good. We said that's fine. We're going to try to be good neighbors. But please, like the gentleman said a minute ago, don't torpedo this great project as a result of concerns that I think are all resolved already. And in fact, if you have questions about any of that detail, we got the folks here to answer them. So, and I actually have a lot of the analysis right down to who's turning where and how many of them, and we just don't normally give you guys this level of detail. If you want it, we can. I just don't think delaying this process, which we just to come back and add this parking structure, we've been in the process now ever since you saw us, and it got approved after your meeting in February. So I'm trying to get this hotel built for everybody, and I think it's going to be a wonderful thing. And please don't delay us. And if you have questions, let's get them worked out tonight. Thanks. And Dan, maybe I'll ask you to jump up just so they don't hesitate to ask any of those questions.
Any questions for their staff?
I would like to hear the comment that was brought
And
up.
microphone, please.
I would like to hear the comment that was brought up about doubling.
About what?
Trips, the number of trips, when it's across the street now, so it would be doubling.
For the record, Dan D'Antonio with Lassiter Transportation Group, 123 Live Oak Avenue, Daytona Beach. She was correct. A trip needs to enter and then a trip needs to exit when they use the valet facilities. And I think that this is the study. This is the study that DOT has. They've had for quite some time. When it's outside of the ordinary, they take a little longer to review. We can appreciate that, and we're being patient. But this study was completely objective and evaluated 3 different scenarios. One is that the network is just like it is. Everyone goes around the block to get to the parking garage, and then they swing back a left on Grandview to come back to the hotel. The second option was that we provide a short receiving lane just for that through movement exiting the hotel. The third scenario was actually a traffic signal at Grandview to facilitate that left turn from the garage back to the hotel. We scored all of those on an engineering basis, and we ended up recommending the signal at Grandview and the receiving lane on Oak Ridge. And the receiving lane on Oak Ridge is to receive those additional trips from people leaving that hotel and going over to the garage. But if you think of it in terms of a big city, everyone wants to reduce vehicle miles traveled, right? You want to reduce the number of vehicles and you want to reduce how far they travel. We think that 100-foot receiving lane that keeps people from going all the way around the block and impacting 2 additional intersections is the preferred condition there. So, having off-site parking under any scenario will require that trip leaving the main hotel site. And what we're trying to do by having that receiving lane is accommodate it in an effective way and keep pedestrians safe at the same time.
That's what I put in my notes. You got to move the cars off the site, and that's the absolute shortest distance between the two. Having the cars set up there waiting to make a left on Seabreeze, and then onto Grandview. That's not signalized at Grandview and Seabreeze, is it?
It is. It is.
So yeah, you're right. So
Mike, please.
Yeah, it's on. It's right here. Can't. Is it on?
Yeah.
But the shortest distance between the two is that way. And then I guess if it backs up in the receiving line, you can still go around the block. There is 2 entrances to the building.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
5 valets.
But once you get into the parking garage, I don't see any potential for backup once you get into that garage after leaving the hotel. The layout of the parking garage has been designed such that it facilitates people, as we talked about, 2 rows, you find a spot or you don't, and you drive on. So I don't anticipate that lane backing up. Of all the problems that we evaluate on this network, that was a very, very low importance and probability as being a problem.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore, any consideration when it moved across the street of a crossover?
For vehicles?
For pedestrians.
Larry, I'm sorry, I meant to address that. And because Paulita raised a good question. She says, she didn't use my name, but she said somebody was up here at the podium at the redevelopment board and said that had been waived at the original approval. That's in fact true. And the reason why, and Rich or Rita, anybody can elaborate on the code provisions, but there is a code provision that says if you park across the street, whether you have a structure or service parking, you got to put a crossing. I don't know how that got in there, but it did somehow at some point in time. And we said then, and we're saying now, we don't need a pedestrian bridge across to get to this garage, nor do we need one to get to the surface parking that we are planning across the street. And that the basis for the waiver that came with the original approval was from the surface parking, not from the garage. So it continues. That waiver will continue to be part of this, despite the fact that there are more people parking over there. We don't want to build a bridge for people to walk across. I just want to make it clear, so that's why I stood up and said that at the redevelopment board. I mean, you can imagine if every hotel that we hope and pray gets built on this beach over the next 20 years has a bridge coming across it, it would end up, being just the opposite of what we're looking for, which is something that looks nice along there.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Merrill?
Actually, can we have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was under the notion that we were going to do board comments after the audience. So, ma'am, make a comment?
Oh, yes, that's why.
Can y'all hear me? Should I put this mic up here?
Thank you.
A couple of things, and hearing everybody's concerns and comments, and which I can appreciate. And I was just taking notes. The key thing is we are trying to do everything we can to redevelop this area. And we're trying to do everything we can to encourage businesses to come in and spend money in this area. Now we have an applicant willing not just to come up and just do something little, but we're talking a big, first-class project. I mean, thank you. Secondly, if we want people to come over there and get out of their cars and make it pedestrian-friendly, then we need to build a structure that can house their cars. Problem solved with this. The best parking structure I've ever seen being put right across the street. It's not going to be an eyesore. I think this is very important that we need to send a message for investors in the future that we are ready for positive growth in our area. And I made a couple of comments too. If the developers want to be ambitious, let them. They're the ones writing the checks. We need to encourage it. If they want to build something that's grand, we should absolutely let them. I mean, we're not going to let them get away with something that doesn't match what we're looking for, match the code, but something like this is absolutely appropriate. What's a better use of that lot on the corner? I mean, it's been sitting there like it's been forever. Why are we complaining that all of a sudden, now that somebody wants to spend money to make that lot, that corner, look great? Why are we complaining? What's the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I think that's what we've done so many times in that area, as we've expected the same old, and we're still waiting for the pot of gold. Now this stuff is doing something different. This stuff right here is bringing in the right people, bringing in the right money, and we should, and I do believe that 99.9% of the people in this community are in support of this. I feel passionate about this because I think at the end of the day, so many of us are trying so hard to redevelop that area, to make this area pretty again. We've got a beautiful beach. We've got some of the things that man can't control. But now we're doing something that we can control and allowing something like this to happen. I'm all for this, and I do believe a lot of people are. I didn't mean to take too much time on this, but I'm passionate about this project. My fellow Americans.
I'm next.
Go ahead.
Actually, I confer with Mr. Bohan on the need for this project. And to tell you the truth, I'm not concerned about the number of parking spaces because we already dealt with the waivers for that in February.
Right.
So I'm not concerned with that. And if there are difficulties with the traffic patterns, the same way the Hilton resolved it, the Adams Mark resolved it when they had their traffic difficulties, I feel it'll work out with this. I am concerned with, and I brought this up at the February approval, the access to the parking at the Cundid property, that there would be enough for people making the right turns off A1A, that they would not block any of their access to parking or the access to their trash pickup. And at that point, you said you would include in the agreement that there always would be that opening at their parking.
We haven't changed anything.
Okay, so that stays the same. There is always going to be the access for the people coming into their property. I'm concerned about that. And I was concerned about the setbacks of the buildings. And I'm very happy to see the renderings with this beautiful landscaping on all sides of this building. And I guess we should make you swear to put this landscaping in.
Let me say, and we've said this, we usually say this, we show you pretty pictures, but behind those are a lot of details that actually show the exact centers that everything's planned on, the exact type of plants. We've got our landscape architect here, and all those detail plans are in your file. That's just a picture that was generated to reflect that. So, yeah, the answer is yeah.
That's why I was concerned with the size of the sidewalk, because the lush landscaping here didn't seem to fit on a 5-foot sidewalk.
It fits. And we can get into the weeds on it if you like. We got the experts right here that have the architect and the landscape architect that work together to make that just perfect. We've been months in the making with your staff going over just that. You might remember across the street, we actually moved columns around to make sure it worked the way everybody wanted it to, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. We know a lot of people walk up and down this boulevard, and we tried to keep that in mind with the design of both sides of the street. So hopefully it works well and everybody's happy.
Good. All right.
Make a motion to approve rezoning plan commercial development for amendment Daytona Beach Convention Hotel and condominiums development 2013-050.
Second.
There's been motion and second. What do you say, board? Shall we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Yes. All opposed? None. Okay. All right. It's been motion and approved. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Had a good month.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm just waiting for them to vacate.
I can't help it. I feel like, you know how Elvis used to get excited and shake his leg? I just get excited about something like this.
For 25 years, but nothing over $20 million.
Next item.
We've got to have
Items number
you sell the sizzle so long.
5 and 6. Number 5, large-scale comprehensive plan amendment, Halifax Hospital Medical Center, DEV 2013-066, quasi-judicial hearing, and also number 6, rezoning, planned master development First Amendment, Halifax Hospital Center, Hospital Medical Center, DEV 2013-026, quasi-judicial hearing. We're dealing with both at the same time, but we will vote on these individually.
Thank you, Mr. Mozak.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dennis Mrozek, planner with the City of Daytona Beach. These are a couple of items that you have seen in the recent past, in the past year and a half. So you'll see that you'll be quite familiar with them. The first item, item 5, is a request to approve a large-scale comp plan amendment to change a future land use map designation from hospital to mixed use for 16.02 plus or minus acres of land located at the southwest corner of North Clyde Morris Boulevard and Dunn Avenue, and to update policy P, or excuse me, neighborhood P, policy issue I, to reflect the additional mixed-use future land use map designation. The site location is located on the northeast corner of where you see the existing Halifax Hospital PMD. I've got it outlined over there. I want to give you an area that give you a little bit better look at it. This is the area that's going to be going through the large-scale comp plan amendment. Currently, the site future land use designation has a hospital designation. You'll notice the mixed use designation to the south and to the west of that. That property was the mixed use was changed approximately 2 years ago. The proposed land use designation would encompass that 16 acres in that northeast quadrant of their property. As far as the proposed amendment, it does amend 16 acres of the future land use map designation to mixed use. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The request does not represent urban sprawl, and it decreases demand on water and sewer capacities and trip generation. The request also amends neighborhood P issue and policy, keeping development restrictions consistent with current neighborhood P standards. As far as a recommendation, staff, based on staff analysis and review, the proposed future land use map amendment from hospital to mixed use with the development restrictions by the proposed neighborhood P policy appears to meet criteria for the proposed amendment. Staff does support the applicant's proposed amendment. A majority vote of the planning board members present and voting is required to recommend approval on the policy matter to the City Commission. As a reminder, this item will go to the City Commission for a transmittal to VGMC and to the state agencies, and then return back to the City Commission after that analysis is complete. And I'm going to roll right into item 6. Item 6 is a sister application with this particular request. It is a request to rezone 93.5 acres of land located at the southwest corner of North Clyde Morris Boulevard and Dunn Avenue, rezoning 16 acres of the subject property from hospital medical to plan master development, and amending the PD agreement for the purpose of expanding the existing HHMC PMD, allowing for construction of a mixed-use development that includes a variety of uses intended to complement the surrounding area. Site location. On this site location, you do see that we are showing you the entire 90-plus acres of the HHMC. As we do the rezoning, it encompasses the existing PMD and the additional property that's going to be included in the PMD. See the outline, the northeast quadrant. You can see that there is development there. There are a few buildings over there. One of the buildings, I believe, is going through a demolition at this time. The existing future land use in that top quarter is hospital. The remaining use is the mixed use. The proposed future land use, which is that sister application, would make the entire parcel mixed use, which would be compatible with what the proposed zoning of the property would be, the PMD for the Halifax Hospital Medical Center. For the proposed PMD amendment, the 77.5 acres of the HHMC PMD that was approved in December of last year, this amendment does add 16 acres to the northeast corner of the property. The PMD is a mixed-use development. It uses uses are listed in your staff report. I did give you a complete list of the uses that were approved with the original PMD. The site plan is required to follow LDC standards unless stated otherwise in the PD agreement. One other note that this request did, it does remove the current building demolition credits that were listed in the PMD agreement. There was a requirement for building credits, or there was an allowance for building credits, demolition credits, to extend up to 25 years past the time that the building was removed to be able to acquire credits for those 25 years. Since we had another chance to take a look at this when it came back, staff took a look at that requirement and decided that we would like to go back to the 1 year on the building credits, same as the Land Development Code would require. It reduces that allowance from what they originally had approved, and the applicant was okay with making that change. Also, just to point out, there is a pending comp plan amendment. This application cannot be approved without the approved comp plan amendment.
Right.
As for our recommendation, staff does recommend approval to rezone 93.5 acres of land located at southwest corner of North Clyde Morris Boulevard and Dunn Avenue, rezoning 16 acres of the subject property from hospital medical to plan master development, and approving the first amendment to the plan master development. An affirmative vote of 6 shall be required to recommend approval to the City Commission. And that concludes staff's presentation. If you have any questions.
Any questions for staff? Good. Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Rob Merrill again for the record, Cobb Cole, 150 Magnolia here for the hospital. This should be pretty straightforward. Those of you who were here a year and a half ago when we brought this, the original for the 77 acres comp plan amendment rezoning forward, you got my explanation, which was probably longer then than it's going to be tonight, about the hospital's plans, which evolved over the last several years, and they acquired a lot of property to the north of the hospital towards Dunn Avenue, which I think provided for several years of future expansion. So this property that they owned across the street, they started to think more about other uses other than hospital for it. And it was in the hospital land use designation and zoning district, so we broadened the uses to a mixed-use category from a land use standpoint. And you guys don't have a mixed-use zoning, so we had to use the planned development. Hopefully you will sometime in the next year or so. But you didn't then, and you still don't now. So what we're doing simply with this is adding some additional acreage. At the time, I think they hadn't decided yet. I know they hadn't decided yet to demolish the Atlantic Medical Center, which you see, I think, either demolished now or under demolition. So it seemed like it made sense to round out their entire holdings over here into the same PD, and that's what we're doing with this. So if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to give you a lot more history if you like, for those of you who weren't here. But there's one thing I do want to say. And Dennis, maybe I need to kind of get you back over. He mentioned something about demolition credits. There was a provision in the original agreement that talked about. This is a complicated subject, and I'm sorry to pull you into it, but he mentioned it, so I got to bring it up. As part of this amendment, we got into a discussion about impact fee credits. The same subject matter applies to a lot of other developments in town here who have done demolition and sought credits for the demolition and then coming and building something where something used to be. From a standpoint of the county road impact fees, which are by far the biggest fee that anybody pays, it's very clear. You demolish something, you show the county what you demolished, they put it in the bank. They have a bank, a computerized bank that says, if you ever build anything again on that piece of property, we won't charge you impact fees because we already took into account in the structure of our impact fee ordinance the buildings which were there, which was part of the legal basis for the ordinance to start with. So we said to the city in discussions when we were talking about amending this, well, we're demolishing a big building here, guys, so we want to make sure it's clear the provision that we already put in that you guys recommended approval of, staff recommended approval of, and the city commission approved a year and a half ago about the credits that we get for demolishing buildings on this piece of property. And unfortunately for us, the language that we used based on staff's input referenced a provision in the code. There's nothing in the code that talks about the impact fee credits that we thought we were talking about, only the concurrency credits. Now I'm sorry to split hairs with you. Again, you brought it up. So the concurrency credits would be if you're being tested to make sure that the impacts of your development don't cause shutdowns in the roads or the sewer system or the water system, and you have to pay what's called a proportionate fair share to make sure it doesn't. That's different from impact fees, although it's creditable towards impact fees. Clearly, the original provision made reference to the former of those two things and continues to. And to the extent that Dennis was implying that it no longer does or it limits it, as the impact fee provisions do to 1 year, we're not changing that. I want to make that clear for the record. I agree with him about the impact fee portion of it, which is different. They overlap to the extent that a payment into a prop fair share agreement to fix something is creditable towards your impact fees. We're not changing the provisions in the development agreement, and I understand you guys are at a bit of a disadvantage because you don't get development agreements for review of that level of detail. But we're not changing those provisions that were already approved. We have agreed, as Dennis said, as it relates to impact fees, not to get into it. We originally, in the context of this amendment, proposed to clarify the language that was originally approved to make it clear that it says what we thought it said to start with, which impact fees and concurrency credits would be credited for the period of the development. I think it's 25 years. We agreed as it relates to the impact fees to back off that, and we have. That's been removed from the agreement. I think that's what he was trying to say, but the original language about the concurrency credits remains. I frankly believe that both of them need to be there for your ordinance to be legal, but Carrie and I don't need to get into that tonight. That's for another day. But I want to make the record clear about that distinction. Oh.
You have me a little bit of a disadvantage also because I don't have the actual request in front of me, yeah.
I got the original agreement too somewhere, don't I? I can read the language to you if I had it.
Yeah, I needed the strike through.
Oh, here it is.
You need the strike through, correct. This is from the original agreement.
Yeah, what is, it shows everything being stricken, Debbie.
Mhm.
Tell me about that.
Since we left it as it was approved.
Oh, I see.
We took it out
Oh,
of the
okay, this is
amendment.
the strike through of what was proposed.
Debbie, you spoke.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You have to.
She's just whispering in my ear. I'm going to say it again. What we're looking at here, I'm sorry for the record, is this was the original proposed. That might have been the basis for your confusion. This was originally what we were proposing to put in add to this. She showed it stricken because we pulled it out and so all this does. Again, let me try to do this. This is going to take a second.
Go ahead.
When we do these amendments to these PDs, we either rewrite the whole agreement and call it an amended and restated agreement, or we just do an amendment to it. And this is getting into the legal weeds a little bit, but I think it's important to get the context of this. What Dennis and I are sitting here looking at for purposes of the record tonight is an amendment. So what this document does is it says we're changing these things, and it lists certain things. In this case, we're adding some property. We're treating that property the same way as the rest of it. It doesn't say a whole lot, really, other than that. It used to say we're rewriting that provision about the credits. And because the city came back and said, well, we don't want you to deal with the impact fees like you're trying to do here. We'd rather just leave that alone. We said, fine. So we struck through that. We said, okay, we won't deal with it anymore like we were proposing. But the provision is still in the agreement because this is an amendment and it's no longer in the amendment, remains. You follow that logic? Are you guys getting what I'm working at? Had this been an amended and restated agreement, it would have been the whole agreement, and we would have been cutting out the whole paragraph, which we weren't doing and never intended to. We intended to take it out of the amendment, which has the effect of leaving what was originally in the agreement in the agreement. God, I wish I wouldn't have to get into this. I'm sorry, folks. I thought this was really going to be a quick meeting. But at the end of the day, that's the effect of not having it in the amendment. It's not being added to the agreement as it's written here, but what was in here originally is still in the other main agreement. That still remains intact.
I think about the last 5 minutes is exactly why we don't get into the plan development agreement with the planning board, and it's worked out. The recommendation from staff is that we're going to follow relative to the impact fees the current land development code language on the additional part we're adding, and we'll make sure that's in the document when it goes to the city commission.
It's really confusion about the program of the black line.
And we'll just make sure we get it clear exactly.
Yes.
That's fine. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, the record can amend what's in the report, but I don't know if, Rob, you heard what Rich just said.
I'm sorry, Dennis was whispering in my other ear. We can get this straightened out before the commission if you guys want to just say you didn't
I just want to make sure
rule
you
on
guys are in agreement.
That's fine.
Rich, you said that whatever's in the land development code is going to apply.
Relative to impact fees,
that's fine.
And you're
that's
okay
what we
with
agreed
that?
to. Yeah, and it's in the reason that what he's saying is absolutely true is because we were trying to introduce something that addressed that subject in this agreement, which we backed away from when everybody got upset about it and said no, the code. So yeah, that's good. It's fine. That okay with you? Okay.
Carrie, did you need to take a look at that? As long as he has
As long as staff is in agreement with the applicant, then we can make sure that the agreement is correct moving forward. So as long as they're on the same page and the board is okay, I think we're all right.
Sorry about that little
Tell
detour.
me about that 25 years again.
What do you want to know about it? That's the you didn't get the development agreement. That's the term of the agreement. This is a long-term development. This is much like the Speedways developments, Embry-Riddles. They have long terms. It's a planned master development, which is envisioned to be a long-term plan, not a short project driven PUD. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All
That should
right.
be enough, I hope.
Well, I did have a question on this. This means then with this 93.52 acres, that we're going to start to get tax money on that now, where it hasn't been available.
Yeah, it's I'm not a tax expert, Larry, but I can tell you that my understanding of ad valorem tax is that it's the use that dictates the taxation of it, and then the exemption status of the hospital is way outside of my realm. But this property is not being used for a commercial purpose, as far as I know, at this point, other than the hospital.
But when you change the mixed
I'm sorry. Time out.
Let
me just finish. Other than the Florida healthcare plans, which is being used for commercial use, but it's a hospital related. I don't know the tax treatment of that particular building. I can't speak to that. But as it relates to the vacant land over there, I don't think this affects the tax treatment of it at all. If something's built there and a use is made, a commercial use, a shopping center gets built, I think it does change it. But until then, I don't think it affects it.
Okay.
It's the actual use. Again, not an expert.
Okay. I have a question. In relation to this, I wasn't here a year and a half ago, but question was about the wildlife and the species and so forth that reside in that area. Have there been any plans to do anything about it, or they're looking at them becoming extinct?
You can put the aerial back. Most of this is paved wall to wall.
Oh.
The part that we're talking about tonight?
Oh, the new part.
is.
Yeah.
Oh, it is paved? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's where the building's
I thought
coming
there were a
down
lot of
right
trees and...
No. Well, if you look at the whole property,
The
there are
whole
trees
property.
on it. That was part of the original approval that we got into how it was going to be dealt with in terms of everything. But it's going to be developed, and we're abiding by all the regulations. And
Okay, now I understand about the demolition.
we actually have
so
an
I was
existing permit from the Water Management District on the property for the entire development.
Okay.
And there's going to be some work being done there soon. I
Okay.
hope.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
there recently, so I actually saw some of the demolition and stuff that was
Yeah.
going on. So
There's
I
about
was just
3,000 feral cats, I think, that have been
Yeah,
rounded
so-
up. So that's the wildlife. That and the homeless, camps that are out there.
cats. I had one more question. I don't want to take up any time for this, so I don't.
That's
want
why we're here.
Confusion, but in your calculation of your 1,785,000 gallons per day usage out of there, I notice you have the multifamily, hotel,
microphone.
hospital, community college, retail office, medical office, business flex space. But you base it all, it appears, on the FAR of the hospital at .60.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you, because all those areas would have different areas
If
than
you're-
just a hospital bed.
I've got my expert here that came up with the matrix, and I'll have him. I'm going to try to do it in layman's terms. And Randy, if you want to come up and give him the full detail, you can. If you're looking at the precondition is based on what's allowed there, which is a hospital. That's why that's what is that accurate? He's asking you about the .6.
Yeah, even though there's a hospital, you still have the floor area ratio. This would be stated in the...
Fellas.
I'm going to repeat it. I'll repeat it to keep him in his seat. Say it one more time.
We are all out of order.
Yeah. So in other words, the FAR is that dictates the maximum developable area that you could do, and that's the square footage that he multiplied out for the whole entire acreage, if it's built as a hospital, which is what the existing allows. So
Right, but yet you're saying it's going to be, 8 different.
in the post condition. Come on up, Randy.
Okay, no, that's all right.
Because you're losing me as far as what your question is, Larry. Do you want him to come up? I'll get him up if you want.
I don't.
Okay, all right.
I did have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
What do you add to the stormwater for the treatment?
He's not speaking in the microphone.
That goes through. I noticed you mentioned that a couple of times in there, and I'm just curious.
Okay, let me say this. First of all, maybe the best way to address both of your questions, first off, is the ratios and all of the calculations that were done in that matrix that you're looking at were intended to do essentially this. On this entire property, from a future land use standpoint, there's a certain amount of development that's allowed as the ceiling, the maximum that could be done. And in the comprehensive plan amendment process, we look at the maximum which is allowed under the current future land use map compared to what's allowed under what's being requested. And in this case, what we did was we said we want to make sure that as it relates to water impacts on the water system, impacts on the sewer system, and impacts on the transportation network, that we're no more than 90% of what's allowed now. So we said we're going to make sure this is rolled back 10% across the board. Now the trouble, Larry, is there's an infinite number of combinations of those things. And so we had to, in some cases, for instance, a multifamily residential project, as an example, creates a lot more impact from a water and sewer standpoint than an office building. And by the same token, an office building creates a lot more peak traffic generation than the residential. So you had to look at all the different variables, and that matrix was created so that the blending of those things really could be infinite in terms of the proportions of each. And so we had to look at each of them and say, if we were all residential, 90% of the impact of the hospital would be what? And you do that. And then it creates a variable with the others as you mix them that relates to their impacts compared to the hospital, such that any combination would keep it less than 90%. Does that make it?
No,
Okay. And so your second question was about the...
Forget it.
I knew I'd wear him out sooner or later. Sorry, Larry.
It's a curious question.
No, it is relatively a complex way of looking at it, and frankly, it's an analysis that's normally done with the development of regional impact. Very similar. So.
Thanks to our system and our setup, we don't have to deal with the impact aspects of it.
Yeah.
But we do have to study and be ready to receive your information with an understanding point of view. It is difficult sometimes when you have to go back and restate some of these factors, which really confuses us even more because we don't have the whole piece of information, okay? Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right. Board? Okay. Yes. We're going to vote on...
We vote on them separate?
Separate. We'll
Can I make a
vote
motion?
separately.
Yeah, okay. Before I go any further, are there any public comments? Okay. We will vote on them separately, and we'll take the first.
I make a motion that we vote large-scale comprehensive plan amendment DEV 2013-066.
Second.
It's been motion and second. What say you, board? All approve?
Aye.
All opposed? Now, the second one, please.
Motion to,
Will you have discussion on the second one or not?
We did.
On both of them.
Oh.
They're so tied together.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they were together.
Same property right there. The first part was, the motion you just made was on the
Sure. on the
future
first-
land use, and then the.
And this is number 7 now, right?
Number
six.
number
This
six.
is the plan development.
Yeah.
They were both presented
As
the
one.
same thing.
Mhm.
Just have to vote on it.
Okay, so we had no questions about the signage or setback then, I guess.
There is none.
There was none. No questions, that is. All right.
motion to approve rezoning plan master development First Amendment DEV 2013-026.
Second.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Item number 7.
Just a second.
Okay.
Before we go any further, before you escape, we are used to the order of things which we currently use around here, and you're one of our best presenters, and I respect that. Those of you, please remember when coming in, just have your people come up. That's all. Yeah, get it on record. That's all. Thank you, sir. Our next item on our agenda, please.
Item number 7, rezoning planned commercial development minor amendment, Boulevard Tire, DEV 2013-047.
I'll cover this item. Apologize for this coming to you late, but this item, Boulevard Tire, was before you about 2 months ago at your planning board. When this moved on to the city commission at first reading, the applicant asked for a modification to the timing of when they would have to put up their ground sign and replace the existing pole sign. The city commission at that meeting asked the applicant to get with staff and discuss that further so that they could come back with a clearer direction as to what was requested. Staff did that, and when it came to the city commission, which was last night, the city commission, while they understood the request from the applicant, I think certainly expressed some concern about having a discussion for changes that the planning board did not see or did not hear. And the planning board recommended approval of the development order, but added some language that allowed for the applicant to come as a minor amendment for the planning board to express the request for a minor amendment to, all it has to do with is the timing of when they would remove the pole sign that exists at the corner and when they would install the monument sign that you already approved. And in our discussion over the last 2 weeks before last night, we had come up with language that ultimately at the city commission last night said that the planning board may grant modification delaying the requirement to remove and replace. This comes from attachment B from the staff report for this item. But the planning board may grant a modification delaying the requirement to remove and replace the existing sign for up to 10 years subject to the following conditions. Number one, that additional landscaping would be added at the base of the existing sign to soften the edges of it, so long as it's going to remain there. If the ownership of the property changes, the sign will be removed and replaced in accordance with the requirement. And third, that if the sign is replaced at any time, the replacement sign will comply with the monument sign. And they allowed the applicant, or they asked actually that the applicant's item be put on tonight for your consideration to review that, and you have the right in the modified development agreement that the applicant has executed and brought in to approve that minor amendment due to the timing when that would be done. And I know this is unusual, and the city commission felt it was unusual. The city commission certainly wanted to make sure that there was discussion and knowledge of this at the planning board, which is why they sent that here. The agent for the applicant is here if you have any specific questions, but I think generally it came about as a result of when they started looking at their total cost to improve this building, the elevations, the expansion, just the cost of the timing of having to additionally take a sign that is, in their opinion, in good shape. They didn't want to have to do that right away, and that was the genesis of the condition as modified that I mentioned. Be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure the applicant could speak to that in more depth if you have questions as well.
I don't have a question. I just like to make a comment that, that the city commission was very respectful to the planning board in their. I thought that they wanted to move forward with it last night, but then they got thinking, well, okay, they would be moving forward with something that the planning board hadn't seen and hadn't commented on, and that's kind of stopped them in their tracks, and that's why they sent it back to us tonight, just so that our eyes looked at it, and then it went back to the city commission. So it was, they were very respectful of the planning board.
I agree.
So if I understand, originally they were going to take down the pole sign, put up a monument sign.
Yes.
And now they're saying that
No.
because of expenses, we've got a perfect
Initially, at the actual current development order that was drafted and was for the city commission didn't specify when, which would have defaulted at the time of the CO. So the applicant said they'd like some more time before they have to put up that pylon sign.
Do Did they have plans though to put up 2 monument signs eventually?
No.
Just one, just
Yeah,
replace
the one that's going there is going
And
where
they're
the
asking for
pole
10
sign
years
is. Yes,
before they do.
the delay, correct.
In essence.
Mr. Chairman?
They've got a good sign.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I just wanted to say, about the same time that this came up, we had some other things that came up. We had a list of things that we had exemptions to.
Right.
This was such a welcome change to us, and I'm very happy with one thing that we do for these people. I mean,
Yeah.
There was a list.
I'm all for it. I think we should.
They've got a good sign. That's the only.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Yes, the only.
The only.
Yeah.
Wait,
I think
wait,
we're ready.
Yeah.
You got a comment, sir?
Yes, I do. On attachment B, line A, existing text, that was the original condition that we approved, where the sign would be replaced by the monument sign.
Attachment B?
No, existing text,
Oh,
line A.
okay.
Line 8.
The existing text says that a portion, the pedestal of the monument, shall be constructed of the CMU block with textured finish or same material. So it's telling you about what that sign's going to look like.
What
The ground
what
sign.
the original monument sign would have looked like.
Correct.
It's
So now
still
we're
the
adding-
same monument sign we're talking about, it's just the timing of when that's going in.
Okay, so now we're adding B, which gives them the 10 years.
Up to.
Up to.
Up to.
But they can put some landscaping on it too, and that will not hurt it at all.
That's right.
That's what they said they would do.
Make a motion to approve rezoning plan commercial development matter amendment Boulevard 2 development 2013-047.
Second.
The motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. All right. Other business? Downtown Blue Road redevelopment area. Board report.
Hold on. One moment, please. Okay. You hit it before I. Okay. The Downtown Blue Road Redevelopment Board met on August 6th at 12:05. At 12:05, the meeting was called to order. We followed the regular agenda, roll call, approval of minutes. There were two items on the agenda: redevelopment board strategic priorities, and the other was that on that one there was a request to recommend to CRA the board's priorities for downtown and Blue Road redevelopment areas. The item was passed unanimously. The other item was the redevelopment project updates, and we listed them in order of priority. Update the LDC, new business incentives approved by CRA, Riverfront Master Plan, small projects proposed in the Riverfront Master Plan are being evaluated for implementation. The public market, a feasibility study is partially completed, and then a marketing plan implementation. The DDA has contracted with an experienced firm to develop new marketing strategies for downtown and a new website. There were no public comments and no board comments. The meeting was adjourned at 1:40. Next meeting, September 10th.
All right. Midtown. Did you get a chance to go to the meeting?
No, I didn't. I didn't get a call. No one called or said anything, so I didn't take it upon
Reed,
myself
didn't
to
that call
go.
you? I will follow with Reed in the morning.
Okay, yeah. I was
The
waiting.
city commission has to actually fill the spot, but I will have Reed call you.
Yeah, I was willing to fill in on a temporary basis and reschedule some of my personal meetings just to help out until they appoint someone.
All right, thank you. Main Street, South Atlantic.
We met August the 14th on a Wednesday right here, and we discussed our first item, or item number 4 tonight, the parking garage for the hotel. So you were given the notes for that meeting, so I'm not going to waste any more time, but we all were able to ask questions, and we were all pretty much favorable for the project, so we're in favor.
All right. Public comments?
Mr. Public's not here.
Mr. Public's not here, and the other gentleman did leave. That was there. Staff comments?
No further comments.
I wanted to introduce Elsie Wiggins. She's been working with us and will be attending future planning board meetings. And she's been a big help the short time she's been with us so far.
Very good. Ms. Wiggins? All right, Wiggins. All right.
And then the other item I have is we have to approve our schedule each year in advance of 2014. We have prepared draft for you. Believe the 2 months, November and December, we've modified it from our normal schedule to accommodate the holidays, and we've done the same again, proposed the same for 2014, and just need concurrence on the schedule.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I guess the other thing I should mention too, we had the bylaws on here. We knew this wasn't going to be a real short meeting. We did not receive any input of suggested changes back, but we'll schedule that when we have a lighter agenda at some point in the future.
All right. There are no other comments?
Just one thing I was going to say, unless they plan on hanging meat in here later, actually looks to me like they could cut down a little bit on this air in here, because I mean it's costly to run a major building like this, but maybe they are going to hang meat in here later, so I shouldn't, so maybe I shouldn't. Say
I was thinking this is one of the first times I've been really comfortable.
Yeah, it's been fine. You bring your jacket.
Yeah. I brought my jacket just for that purpose. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. When we bring two items up at the same time, and I understand that for the presentation, but it seems more logical to me if we discuss them individually, as I did have some questions on the second part that I would like to have gotten into, and I think it would be easier for us. Because if we start discussing between the two, then we're running here, then somebody else is running here. And I think we should take for discussions one at a time. That's my
Well, I
only
thought we've
comment.
always done that in the past. I mean, I think we've done it.
One at
Two
a
different
time
issues.
is how
Uh-huh.
we've always done it, but we didn't tonight.
I'm just surprised when we did it.
So anyway, that's all.
So doing it together.
For the reading, for the presentation, I understand that because it ties, and he'd just be repeating the same thing basically.
Right.
But for discussion, then we need to take each item individually.
So you can blame anything you want on a newbie.
No,
But
I just
I
didn't
know you're
realize
not.
that's
You're
what we
making
were
a
doing when
suggestion.
we did it, and everybody says, yeah, that's what we did. So.
Yeah, we did sort of discuss it, and it was discussed to a point by Mr. Merrill and what have you. But the thing is, it was close together.
Well,
which distorted it.
I had questions on the second
Yeah, okay.
half that, had I known that, I would have brought up earlier. in our
Okay.
discussion, but I felt we didn't, so.
Well,
Anyway, I'm just stating that.
well, thank you. That's a piece I won't forget. All right. All having been said, meeting is adjourned.